Look in a mirror right now. Now imagine that for just 1 second. The person staring back isn't you anymore. I didn't think that was possible either, until the mirrors in my apartment stopped behaving like one. I'm hoping someone here has seen anything like this before, because I really don't want to be the only person going through it. I need someone who actually understands what's happening. Something in my apartment's mirrors isn't acting the way it should. Before you think I'm joking or sleep deprived, let me explain how this started. And to do that, I need to tell you a little bit more about me and where I live. My name is Seth Morrow. I live in a small rental apartment on the edge of Asheville, North Carolina, an old brick building that creaks when the temperature changes and smells faintly of pine from the forest behind it. It's a small one-bedroom living room in the front, a narrow kitchen off to the side, and a short hallway that leads to the bathroom and the bedroom at the end. I moved in 2 months ago to be closer to work. The place isn't perfect, but it's quiet, and quiet felt good. Or it did. I didn't pick Asheville because it was peaceful. I picked it because it was practical. My old commute was killing my evenings, and when a colleague mentioned an open unit on the edge of town, close to work, next to a trail network, I took it. I've never been picky about where I live. 4 walls, hot water, somewhere to put my keys. That's usually enough. Those first few weeks felt normal in the best possible way. I'd wake up, coffee, shower, work, come home, heat something from the freezer, watch a bit of TV, try to sleep. On weekends, I'd sometimes take a short walk on the forest path behind the building. The air smelled cleaner there, sharper, a little resinous. Pine, probably. Sometimes I'd take the car out instead and drive down to Hendersonville to see my family for a few hours. It was only a short trip, an easy excuse to get out of the apartment. And on quieter nights, the breeze coming off the trees would drift right through my open windows. It reminded me that life doesn't need much to feel calm. I had no warning that anything was wrong. Just small things at first. Nothing dramatic. Nothing anyone would think twice about. A creak in the pipes. The fridge humming unevenly. The soft scrape of my upstairs neighbor dragging a chair. The sort of sounds old buildings make to remind you they're alive. I settled into a routine. At work, I handled inventory for a small outdoor gear shop downtown, a job that requires quiet focus but not much conversation. Still, I got along with most people there, especially Evan. He was new too. Started a week after I moved. Friendly in a low-key way. He'd laugh at the same dumb things I laughed at during stocking shifts. We'd sometimes grab a sandwich from the cafe across the street before heading home. Nothing deep. Just a decent coworker becoming a decent friend. The point is, life was boring in a comfortable way, normal, predictable. Then the mirror incidents began. The first incident was small enough. I was brushing my teeth before work, half awake, leaning toward the bathroom mirror. As I spat into the sink, I saw my reflection blink. Nothing strange about that, except I hadn't blinked. Not yet. Mine followed half a second later. I stared at myself. Maybe I misread it. Maybe I blinked without noticing. Morning fog in the brain, nothing dramatic. I finished getting ready and left it alone. At work that day, the incident kept creeping in my brain. Not obsessively, just the kind of thought that returns every few hours like an itch. I tried describing it to myself, in plain terms. Maybe you twitched. Maybe it was your peripheral vision. Maybe you're tired. But the rhythm of it kept replaying in my head. A blink is such a simple action, you don't forget the timing of it. I didn't tell anyone, didn't want to sound ridiculous, obviously. That weekend, I tried to forget about it. I slept in, made coffee, tried to treat it like any other slow morning. But when I walked past the bathroom door, something made me glance at the mirror again. Not to check, just a passing look. My reflection wasn't doing anything strange. No blinking, no delay. But its posture caught my attention. I was mid-step, turning slightly toward the kitchen. In the mirror, I looked like I'd already finished the turn, a fraction ahead of me. The difference was tiny. The kind of thing you could blame on angle or motion blur. But it didn't feel like that. It felt deliberate, like it adjusted before I did. I stood there for a few seconds, testing small movements, tilting my head, shifting my shoulders. Everything lined up perfectly again, as if it had corrected itself the moment I paused. I told myself it was nothing, just weekend grogginess. But the oddness followed me the rest of the day, sitting at the back of my mind like a misplaced word I couldn't stop searching for. A couple of days later, it happened again while I was combing my hair before work. I leaned closer to the mirror to fix the back and caught the movement in the corner of my eye. My reflection straightened a fraction earlier than I did. It was subtle, but unmistakable. I blamed the warped mirror. The building is old, the glass probably bowed or uneven. Refraction does odd things sometimes. I even took the mirror off the wall to check the backing. A metal plate, solid, undamaged. I wiped it down, remounted it, and tried not to think about it again. It stuck with me this time. At work, I felt off balance all day. I kept glancing at the small mirror mounted behind the register, checking it every time I passed. Nothing strange happened, which only made me feel more self-conscious. Eventually, during lunch, I mentioned it to Evan. Not in a dramatic way, more like a random complaint. "Hey, weird question," I said. "Do mirrors ever lag?" He looked up from his sandwich. "Lag?" I replied in a thoughtful manner. "You know, you move, and the reflection looks a little off." He snorted. "Sounds like your apartment's haunted." I rolled my eyes. "Yeah." "Okay." He softened and said, "Seriously though, old glass does that, especially the really old stuff. Before they used float glass manufacturing, the sheets were never perfectly flat. You'd get these tiny waves in the surface that made reflections look stretched or slightly delayed. My grandmother's house had a couple of those antique mirrors. If you moved even a little, the reflection sort of bent. Nothing lined up right." I raised an eyebrow. "When did you become an expert on glass?" He smiled. "I'm not. I just grew up in a house full of old, uneven things." It made sense. Enough sense that I let myself lean on that explanation for a day or two. But once you notice a pattern, your mind refuses to let it stay quiet. The next morning, I tested it deliberately. I raised my hand slowly toward the mirror. My reflection moved with me until just before my hand reached the glass, the reflected hand paused, as if unsure how close it should be, only for an instant. But the pause was real. It felt like someone trying to match timing and missing by a fraction. I told myself I needed more sleep. That day at work, I didn't bring it up again. But Evan noticed I was quieter. "You good?" he asked while restocking headlamps. "Just tired," I said. He nodded, not prying. One reason we got along, he kept things simple. But as the day went on, I kept replaying the mirror's hesitation, the tiny pause, the strange uncertainty in my own reflection. It wasn't dramatic. It was too controlled for that. That was what bothered me most. It felt intentional. For the next week, I avoided the bathroom mirror as much as I could. In fact, I covered it with a bath towel so I wouldn't have to look at it even by mistake. I shaved using touch, splashing water by guesswork, anything to keep my eyes off the glass. It made me feel ridiculous, but Something about facing my reflection directly made my throat tighten, even if nothing dramatic happened. It wasn't fear, it was the sense that I was being watched back. During that week, little things shifted. I started leaving earlier for work just to avoid looking in the mirror. I started brushing my teeth, leaning away from the sink. I'd bump into corners, misplace objects, and I felt stupid. Completely stupid. That's what pushed me to act. On Monday, my first real chance, after a weekend of fussing, I asked Evan after closing if he could swing by the apartment. Just to check something, I said, trying not to sound embarrassed. He raised a brow. Something wrong? I just want another pair of eyes. He agreed. We drove over together after grabbing dinner. Asheville nightlife hummed faintly in the distance, but the forested edge of my building was quiet. My place smelled like dust and faint pine. I walked him to the bathroom, peeled off the towel I'd draped over the mirror earlier, and waited. "Okay," he said, "what am I looking for?" "I don't know," I said honestly. He stared at our reflections for a good minute, made faces, raised eyebrows, tilted his head left and right. "Well," he said finally, "it's a mirror." "No lag, no weird movement?" I asked. "Looks normal to me." He patted my shoulder. "You probably scared yourself the first time. Happens." I tried to believe him. I wanted to. He stayed for a beer, joked about how I owed him for ghost inspection duty, and left around 9. As he pulled out of the parking lot, he stuck his head out the window and yelled, "If the mirror eats you, I get your camping gear." I laughed. A real laugh, not forced. When his taillights disappeared around the corner, the apartment felt different again. The silence wasn't peaceful this time. It sat in the rooms like something waiting for me to acknowledge it. Even the familiar creaks of the building seemed muted, as if the place were holding its breath. I tried to shake it off, made a cup of tea, put on a show I'd seen a dozen times. Anything to let the normal rhythm of the night settle back in. For a little while, it helped. I even started convincing myself that Evan was right, that I'd just worked myself into a corner over nothing. But the reassurance didn't last. Every time I moved past the bathroom doorway, the mirror caught my attention in a way I couldn't explain. A quiet pull in the back of my mind, like the room was waiting for me to look again. Eventually, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I went back into the bathroom and stood in front of the mirror, relaxed my shoulders, and simply breathed. Slow in, slow out. My reflection did the same. Perfectly synchronized. Good. I felt silly for worrying. Then I exhaled sharply just once. To my utter shock, the reflection, however, exhaled twice. I stepped back so fast I hit the counter behind me. The reflection stepped back at the same moment, not mirroring my movement but copying the speed, like a partner in a dance who had finally learned the routine. There was no expression on its face beyond my own. Just, how do I explain this? Timing. Timing that didn't belong to me. For the first time, I understood what was happening. It wasn't imitating me, it was learning me. I covered the bathroom mirror immediately, this time with printer paper and packing tape. A crude barrier. But it felt like doing something. It rustled faintly as the adhesive settled. But after that, the apartment grew quiet again. The rest of the night blurred into a mess of pacing between the bathroom and the kitchen, trying to make sense of anything. My mind kept telling me what Evan told me. Old glass, weird angles, sleep deprivation. But the moment of the double exhale replayed in my head over and over, clear as if it were still happening. There had been no mistake, no optical illusion. It had responded. Twice. Eventually, the exhaustion caught up with me. I lay down without meaning to, still fully dressed, telling myself I'd just rest my eyes for a minute. I don't think I was asleep for more than 5 minutes when I woke to a soft sound. A dry crinkle. Paper shifting. Not peeling, just moving as if something brushed lightly against the surface from behind. I held my breath and listened. Another sound. A subtle push from the backside of the taped mirror. Then stillness. I didn't sleep again after that. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited for morning like a kid waiting for thunder to stop. My thoughts kept stuttering in short, uncomfortable loops, never settling on anything for more than a second. I kept reaching for my phone, thinking I should call Evan just to hear somebody got awake on the other end. But what was I supposed to tell him? That my bathroom mirror was practicing how to push? Even imagining the words made me put the phone back down. And I didn't dare go into the bathroom. The doorway was right there, only a few feet from the bed, a darker rectangle in the dim room. Even without seeing the mirror itself, the idea of that taped paper shifting again made my stomach twist. I kept my eyes on the doorway, afraid that if I looked away, something else might happen in the space I wasn't watching. I gave myself another safe and tired suggestion. It was the building settling, the paper reacting to humidity. I stayed in bed until morning light crept through the blinds. Only then did I get up and approach the bathroom. The paper covering the mirror bulged outward slightly in one rounded spot, no bigger than the heel of a hand. When I pressed it gently, it flattened like normal paper. Nothing behind it, no hole, no intruder. By now, nothing felt normal to me. I went to work in a daze. Evan noticed. "You look awful," he said. "Didn't sleep." He hesitated. "Is this about the mirror?" I nodded. He looked at me carefully. "What happened after I left?" I tried to answer, but the words stuck for a second. "It did something weird," I said finally. "Weird how?" I rubbed the back of my neck, feeling stupid even before I spoke. I went to check it again later. And when I breathed out, I stopped, searching for the right phrasing. It breathed twice. Evan blinked slowly. He wasn't laughing, but he wasn't sure he'd heard me right either. "Twice?" "Yeah." I exhaled once, showing him. I did that, and the reflection did it twice. Not at the same time, not synced, just... I shrugged helplessly. "Wrong." He studied my face, trying to read whether I was joking or exhausted past sense. "And you're sure you weren't imagining it?" "I know what I saw," I said quietly. I covered the mirror right after. Evan nodded, polite and cautious. The kind of nod people give when they want to be supportive but not quite sold on the story. "Okay. Well, you probably overwhelmed yourself yesterday. It happens." I didn't argue. I just nodded back. He sighed. "You need to get someone qualified to check that place out. Maintenance, landlord, someone." "I don't think this is a maintenance thing," I said, a little sharper than I meant to. Evan's expression shifted, not annoyed, just concerned. "You're scaring yourself, man." He wasn't wrong. But he wasn't right either. That day after I returned from work, I covered every mirror in the apartment, the hallway mirror, the mirrored closet door, even the small utility mirror I kept in a kitchen drawer. I taped them until each one was nothing but a blank white surface. If the entity needed a reflective surface to appear, then I'd give it nothing to use. For the next couple of days, the apartment stayed silent. The silence didn't comfort me. It just made me hyper-aware of every small shift in the apartment. The hum of the fridge, the tick of the baseboard heater, wind moving through the trees outside. I checked the taped mirrors multiple times a day. the paper stayed unmoved. I almost convinced myself I had imagined everything. Almost. At work, just 2 days after the breathing incident while stocking gear, I walked past the small mirror mounted near the fitting area. For a second, my reflection looked normal, tired, but normal. But when I bent down to pick up a box, the reflection straightened a split second before I did, just a fraction too early, just enough to make me flinch. I pretended I didn't see it. I finished my shift with my eyes anywhere but mirrors. Later in the car, I caught myself in the rearview mirror. Not staring, just a glance, a normal glance. But the reflection held my eyes a split second longer than I held its. I jerked the mirror upward so it pointed at the ceiling and drove the rest of the way home, with my throat tightening every time headlights passed behind me. By the time I pulled into my parking spot, I was shaking. I kept telling myself I was tired, stressed, losing my grip. Anything but the truth I didn't want to name. That night, the sounds began again. First, the bathroom. A gentle flex of taped paper. Then the hallway mirror. A second, soft push. Then the bedroom closet. A third, slightly longer. Each one independent. Each one slow. Each one deliberate. Not tapping. Not knocking. Just the quiet movement of something learning how to push. Not with force, but with control. I stood in the dark hallway, listening to the shifting paper. None of the mirrors showed anything through the tape, but the sound alone told me enough. Whatever lived in the reflections hadn't stopped when I covered the mirrors. It had simply continued practicing out of sight. As I write this now, the apartment is silent again, but I keep thinking about the first mirror I covered, the bathroom one. That was the earliest surface the entity had access to. The place where it first learned to blink out of sync, then breathe out of sync, then move out of sync. If it started in that mirror, then that's where it's strongest. And that mirror is only 6 feet from where I'm sitting, close enough that I can hear every small shift whether I want to or not. I'm afraid to take the tape down. I'm also afraid to leave it on. Because if the paper ever starts to move in a shape I recognize, that means it isn't practicing anymore. It means it's ready. I keep staring at the bathroom door now, waiting for the next sound, waiting for the next shift in the paper, waiting for something I don't know how to stop. Part of me wants to move out tonight. Part of me fears whatever lives in those mirrors isn't tied to the apartment at all. I don't know what to do anymore. Can anyone tell me what I should do?